Welcome, the Maverick Nation. 3, 2, 1, start. Got an intro in this house. Oh, well, hello, my wonderful guys of the Maverick Nation. I'm the Darkson Maverick, and here to bring you guys some more What If free on the channel. I believe this be part 2 of What If Izuku was... What's the actual name of the thing now that I think about it? Oh yeah, What If Izuku was raised by Touya and Esdeath? And if you're wondering why I have a Kame Got Killed character and a mostly My Hero related story, well, it ain't my fault that I saw an idea and it kind of just stuck in my head that I wanted to make my own spin on it. Who knows, I might actually get to doing some like One Punch Man content on here. Yeah, One Punch Man or Kill la Kill. Yes, One Punch Man, Kill la Kill. Like, get that shit out here. Even though I haven't even watched a single episode of Akame Got Kill. And what I know about One Punch Man is he has his serious punch of death. Bam! Just kills people with it. Basically, nothing that I'm really all that sure about, Kill la Kill is, well, there was a character from that anime who fought Shadow in Death Battle, and, well, she got royally screwed over. At least Shadow got to win at least one of the death battles. I was beginning to think that there might be a little bit of, bias, especially with the newer version of Sonic vs. Mario, where they changed up who actually won the battle. Pissed me off really bad. You guys really know how to irk me and make me happy at the same time. Because you pissed me off by changing the ending of Sonic and Mario, and you made me happy with the ending of whatever the name of the character was from Kill la Kill versus Shadow. Because Shadow finally got to freaking win for once. Shadow would have won had he been able to stay in his super form for just a little bit longer whenever he was fighting Vegeta. Because he would have blasted him. And they didn't really mention the God forms, so yeah. If it's just like Super Saiyan 1 and Super Saiyan 2, you just stayed in his super form for a little bit longer, Chaos Blast Vegeta, and, you would have won it. I mean, that's how he won the battle against the person from Kill la Kill, I cannot freaking remember them. Their name for jack shit. Ah. Mm, mm. Anyways, part one of this, we basically had everything like leading up to what should be the beginning of the anime. You know, with the last day of middle school basically being the end thing for part one. So, yeah. Whatever happens afterwards, probably gonna come, covering this part up until a certain point that I decide I need to stop. Because I'm planning on uploading more than one video today. Yeah, who would have thought? My videos are so damn long, I can only upload like one or two. But hey, like, I'm just trying to give, like, you guys good content. And, I even, gave an intro to my video. You know, an intro. And if you guys like the video to have an intro, if you guys like it, if you guys think that I should add a little bit more pizzazz to my intro, or you just like it how it is, like the simplicity of it, you know, if you like the simplicity of it, or you think that it needs to be a little bit more complex, or you just really don't care for my intro, I honestly wouldn't really judge you for not caring about my intro and, maybe thinking that I shouldn't really go to that extra effort of adding in a very unnecessary intro. I think it's necessary if I want to grab some attention and let people know, hey, I'm actually taking this seriously. I'm not just goofballing around for the sake of goofballing around. I'm actually taking this whole YouTube thing seriously. Like, I don't get paid, but still, I mean, I want to show the appreciation for such, a type of platform that has given me so much joy and so much happiness. You know, those two things are the same thing, but whatever. Anyways, seeing as this is just been right after, and Touya was like, "Yeah, we need to get home right away, so your mom doesn't cause a serious shit fit." Just you guys, a little bit of a reminder for you guys. Esdeath is the mother, Touya is the father, adopted. And, Setsuna's adopted, Izuku's adopted, they're pretty much adopted siblings, and Touya and Esdeath are the parents. Yeah, because Setsuna really isn't in the title of the What Ifs, so just had to set all the ground rules down. Oh, and plus, like, Reiko, that's just what I'm gonna call her now, just for the sake of simplicity, just for simplicity's sake, I'm just gonna call her Reiko until someone, like, corrects me in the comments, if anyone does. For really, for all I know, they could care more about the intro than actually me making a mistake of mispronouncing a character's freaking name. Like the song I chose for the intro. They'd probably care more about that than me actually pronouncing a character's name right. Yeah. Good God, if I exhaled anymore, I would have died. just then. Jesus Christ, that was very awkward and didn't feel too good. And you guys might actually be asking, well, if, all these people have been working, like, as, like, a family, like, what do Esdeath and Touya do to, like, support the family? Like, keep the house, keep, like, everything on. Like, what is done? Well, technically, like I said, Esdeath is indeed a general, so that's already goes good towards the money. And, Touya, well, it's more or less the money that the league gets. you know, it's just everybody will get their, part of their salary, and Touya will just have to, bite the bullet and share his salary around to help Esdeath with the money situation. So yes, part of the reason why they're afloat in life is because Touya decided to share his, you know, salary from working for the League. So yeah, even though they're the League of Villains, the opposite of a good guy, Toya's work as a member of the League of Villains actually helps them have a good life. And so, very ironically, by being a bad guy, he's being a good guy. He's being a bad guy, but he's, raking the benefits off of it in a very good way. In a very selfless way as well. Like, good in that way. Like a selfless kind of good. So yeah, sharing his freaking salary, like, of payment, like, that he gets from working with, like, the rest of the league, he basically shares his salary with the rest of the family, or more or less shares his salary with Esdeath to, like, add to the money that she already has, being a general, all the military, like, funding, like, you know, just as long as positive morale, more military funding, Esdeath, it'll be easier and easier for, Esdeath to keep things afloat. The more positive morale, the more money, the easier things are kept afloat. And all Touya has to do is be selfless enough to share his entire freaking salary from working with the League of Villains and add it to Esdeath's money pile. Yeah, so we can clearly see who makes more money out of the two of them. Yet, Touya is still head over heels for Esdeath. So yeah. Yeah. And if you guys are going to be wondering, like, for how long have Izuku and Setsuna known that they were adopted? Well, as soon as, Touya and Esdeath thought it would be safe to tell them that they were adopted, that, they're not their actual birth parents, Setsuna, whatever happened with her, and, well, that got her all out and exposed to the elements, exposure, you know, at that age, you're probably going to die from it if nobody picks you up. And that's what Esdeath did, so that Setsuna would not only not die, but to get back at Touya for, doing the whole thing with Izuku. But, Touya would indeed explain in, good detail that the woman who is the actual birth mother of this Izuku kid is just such a good person. Like, he couldn't not do it. Like, it would just be, it would basically like he was being his father if he, legit refused actually helping her. That's what Touya would basically tell Esdeath. He would feel like he was being his father. He would consider it that much of like a heinous act to not, do what he did. And, Esdeath, trying to understand Toya's train of thought, Esdeath would kind of have to look up Endeavor in order to get the entire whole picture. And whenever Esdeath started, doing research on Endeavor, and, even someone by the name of Ray, wait, they both have the last name of Todoroki? Wait, isn't that your last name, Honey Bun? Schnookums, Honey Schnookums? Yeah, just, just to be that way. That's what Esdeath would be calling him for the next few days. Honey Schnookums. Just to be that way with Touya. And for those of you guys that are like, the whole thing about Tegu and freaking quirks and how was Esdeath a character from Akame ga Kill even in this? Well, I'm going to say that, well, I'm going to pull an All Might and say that something had to be done about Esdeath's Tegu. And like Esdeath was kind of, realizing something is up with my Tegu, and she would have someone, like several people, analyze her, like look over like everything that need to be looked over in order so that they could basically tell her what was wrong with her Tegu. And her Tegu being like freaking, last time I checked, Demon's Extract. That's the name of her Tegu, I think. They would basically just be like, Esdeath, General Esdeath. Demon's Extract is acting up like that because, well, maybe it was a good thing for you to act that way that you were about that Tatsumi kid. And, Esdeath would kind of be getting the picture. Like, whenever Esdeath kind of changed and got all lovey-dovey over Tatsumi, or Tatsuki, or whatever his name is pronounced. I'm just gonna call him Tatsumi, actually, because I think it'd be easier to say than just Tatsuki all the time. Tatsumi. I'm just gonna call him Tatsumi. Basically just be like, ever since, that whole Tatsumi guy, ever since you were started being obsessed with him, this, well, came about because of your obsession with the one known as Tatsumi. And basically, whenever Esdeath would hear that, well, basically her, like some sort of physical manifestation of her Tegu got pissed because she was acting lovey-dovey with freaking Tatsumi. You know, it's demon's extract, not lovey-dovey extract. And so, like, what happened to the old Esdeath? Like, why are you not doing what you're supposed to be doing? Like, why are you being all lovey-dovey with this guy? Like, what the shit? So basically, this whole, like, oddball thing that would be going on with, you know, Esdeath's Tegu would, be a whole result of her Tegu not liking the fact that she was in a relationship. Especially with Tatsumi. Like, yeah. The physical manifestation of, you know, Esdeath's Tegu, demon extract, would especially not like Tatsumi. Maybe it's a little something called main character syndrome. A little bit of that main characteritis. And yeah. So, because of the fact that, due to, like, Esdeath attempting to have a relationship with that Tatsumi kid, pissing her Tegu off so much that it created a physical manifestation to show how pissed off it was. And, even that wasn't enough. So she had basically, like, the physical embodiment of her Tegu lose its shit and cause this to happen. So, yeah. Whole thing with an Akame ga Kill character being in the My Hero universe, her Tegu kind of just somehow altered itself, like, possibly on accident, but in the way it became altered, it altered itself in the way that which, just like All Might's quirk, like, One for All, it could be passed on. Like freaking Esdeath's Tegu, like, started to alter itself to the point where it was passable to other people. Maybe, like, if it was passed on to Tatsumi, Esdeath would shut up. Like, I guess that was the Tegu's, like, train of thought. Like, maybe if, like, Tatsumi is given this, like, freaking Tegu, maybe then Esdeath would finally shut up. Yeah, so Esdeath got all lovey-dovey with freaking Tatsumi. Her Tegu, Demon's Extract, did not approve. And so, out of retaliation, not only did it gain a physical form, and it started retaliating even more after that didn't really do it any all that much good. A physical form still inside Esdeath's mind palace thing, whatever. So it went even further in altering itself to the point to where it actually became passable to others. However, whenever Esdeath tried to try this out, she kind of made an error in, like, her observation of her Tegu whenever she was trying it out. The whole passing on of the Tegu. So much so that it actually created a ripple thing that kind of started to tug at Esdeath. And, it was basically a game of tug of war, but eventually the thing that Esdeath was trying to tug at, her own Tegu, started to grab her back and started to tug her in. So, yeah, eventually, the Tegu kind of, pulled a reverse Uno card on, Esdeath, as Esdeath would be falling. Basically, her Tegu would just automatically, somehow, as she'd be falling through the warp point, her Tegu would have just reset itself, completely forgetting about everything that got it there. And this is all because of her little fangasm over Tatsumi. All because of him is the reason why she's freaking here. Her Tegu didn't exactly like her fangasming over Tatsumi. So much that she would literally want to die, arm in arm with him. Yeah. Her Tegu did not take a liking to that. So much so that it caused this to happen. Also known as, before the whole warp thing was completely finished, Esdeath would actually tell Touya that before the whole warp thing was finished, she actually thought she heard the words Tegu reload. Kind of like reloading a file. Basically reloading your Tegu. Just starting over, loading a new file. Basically the Tegu equivalent of loading a new file. It's the same Tegu, but, without all of the previous memories of its original state. So, she would still have Demon's Extract, but, Demon's Extract, if it had any sentience still in it at all, would not remember a damn thing about its little temper tantrum because of the fact that it didn't like Tatsumi, and Esdeath did. More or less just didn't like the fact that she was being lovey-dovey with people, Esdeath. Esdeath is her own woman. Even if you're her freaking Tegu, she is not going to care. And so, yeah. And, well, if you guys are wondering, about, quirks or Imperial Arms / Tegu, because Tegu are also called Imperial Arms, or something along the lines of that. Esdeath would rather call them Imperial Arms, and, have the whole Tegu thing just be an afterthought. So, yeah. Instead of calling it a Tegu, she would call it an Imperial Arm. Because that's just the way Esdeath would be. And the reason why all of this shit is important is, well, because, you know, we all know Setsuna's thing, her quirk is Lizard Tail Splitter, and I know that Pony's quirk is Horn Cannon, and, you know, that could so easily be taken the wrong way. Horn Cannon. And as for Reiko's quirk, it's freaking Poltergeist or something to do with ghosts. Well, yeah, what I do know is Reiko's quirk has something to do with ghosts, I think. Yeah, it has something to do with ghosts. And the reason why I mentioned, you know, Pony and Reiko is because they are going to be a part of Izuku's friend circle. And, you know, I mentioned Setsuna because Setsuna is the sister of Izuku. That is always going to be giving him a hard time. And with Bakugo there, for the love of Jesus, our Lord and Savior, for all of us who do indeed believe in the Lord and Savior. What exactly should I do indeed do? I mean, seeing as I just, you know, mentioned quirks, like, how would the Imperial Arm shit get into this? Besides, you know, the mere fact that someone who has an Imperial Arm, known as Demon's Extract, you know, Tegu's being also considered Imperial Arms, and her Tegu / Imperial Arm, Esdeath's one being Demon's Extract. Well, Touya's entire thing, it's either blue flames or cremation. It's one of those two, because I know the flames that he makes are blue. You know, Touya's flames are blue. And so for the longest time, I thought his quirk was just blue flames. But, you know, the whole, like, what ifs that I've, you know, watched that, you know, are like, what if Deku had creation? And they involved, like, Touya, like cremation. Like, what if he had cremation? I'm starting to actually kind of believe that his quirk might actually be called cremation instead. So I'm just going to take that giant leap and, you know, say that it's cremation instead. And considering that Izuku originates from this world, not the world of Akame ga Kill, where Esdeath originates from, he would be more likely to get a quirk, not an Imperial Arm. And, well, like, how would he even get an Imperial Arm? And how would he get a quirk? Like, his shit would all have to do with his actual birth parents, not these parents. So, like, why do you even mention cremation? Or, like, just Dabi's quirk in general. Like, Touya, Dabi, you know. That Dabi being his code name. Why would you even mention cremation? And why would you even mention Imperial Arms / Tegu? Why would you even mention all of that? Like, even if Izuku could have a freaking quirk, you know, it would have to be something from either his mother or his father, right? Like some variation of that. Well, that's the thing. That's just the thing. You know, being boyfriend, girlfriend, you know, having that relationship, you know, you just think Touya and Esdeath are going to play it safe? No. I mean, they do play it safe in one way, but not in like both ways. Not in both ballparks. like, they play it safe in one way to make sure no other munchkins are added into the mix. But in the other way of playing it safe, that is not a factor. That isn't even part of the freaking, like, you know, that isn't even part of their vocabulary whenever it comes to actually ways of playing it safe. So yeah, I'm basically telling you guys that Esdeath, Touya, rather Esdeath X Touya, known for doing the nasty and loving it, and not really caring if their kids will hear them doing it. So yeah, and eventually, like how I mentioned, Touya currently at this point in the timeline of this what if is already a part of the league. He would have connections with All For One. That would mean he would have connections with All For One, and he would just be like, say All For One, my kid, and All For One would be like, please be specific, Touya, because he would also know about Setsuna. Like, All For One would know this shit. And that's because Touya really isn't all that good at being secretive about his life alongside Esdeath. And so, All For One would just be like, be more specific. Which kid? And, Touya would just be like, the one without a quirk. And, All For One would just be like, Jesus. Like, oh, wait, the one without a quirk. Oh, you mean your son, not your daughter? And Touya was like, thank you, Captain Obvious. My daughter's quirk is Lizard Tail Splitter. Is it that easy to forget? And, All For One is just like, well, that's actually one of the reasons why I never tried to steal it. Yeah, also another one of the other reasons being, the person who you're in a relationship with, and also another reason being, it's so damn useless. Why would I want it? I mean, literally, be literal with me here, Touya. How, honestly, how useful do you literally think your daughter's quirk is? I mean, at least Izuku here, you know, Izuku, even if he's quirkless, at least he doesn't have the misfortune of having a quirk, but having it be total shit. And, Touya would be like, don't remind me. He'd just be like, Touya would just be like, don't remind me. And he'd just, be like, your whole thing with quirks? All For One, I would like to order one from the All For One Express, if that wouldn't be too hard for you to do, Lord All For One. He would just be like bowing all respectively, but he would just have this like freaking shit-eating grin, like underneath all of this pretend respect. He would just have the biggest shit-eating grin. And All For One would just be like, want me to just lay a quirk straight in front of you, lay one out, and just pop, just for you to pop straight into your own son like it's a freaking blast toaster oven. Like a blast furnace toaster oven. And, Touya would be like, well, apparently you can add mind reader to your list of skills. And all for one would just be like, fine, I'll see what I can do. He's just like, fine, I'll see what I can do. And, all for one would see something quite interesting, like, he would see something interesting as in, he wouldn't see anything, but the fact that he wouldn't see anything that would really fit the kid would give all for one an idea. He would come back empty-handed, but he would indeed have something, in his mouth to come out of his mouth, to say to Touya. Like a better idea? Something I do have that could be something good for you. Two birds, one stone. And, Touya would just be like, you aren't actually insisting that I, and, all for one would just be like, you would have this powerful ice quirk. Something to help differentiate you even more from your old man. As much as you hate him, I think you would be jumping for joy at the chance to actually. And then Touya would just be like, just give me the damn thing. And, all for one would just be like, no one can ever just be grateful. And, Touya would just be like, so how exactly would I gift my son with my quirk, though? And, well, all for one would just be like, see this device? It has a tiny bit of my quirk, you know, enhancing it like a power source. A one-use device. Because of just how little of my quirk it has in it to be the power source. The functionality of the device itself is to eject the power source, being my quirk, out at something or someone. And the fact that I'm able to give or take quirks with my own quirk, I think you can see where this is going. Yes. That's why there's two of these special devices here. I will connect them using a linkage cable. The first use will be used to take out your cremation quirk, and the second use would be to, well, the whole ice quirk as part of the backup drive attached to that side would be in order to inject you with the quirk. Ice manipulation. And, well, basically, like, Toya would just be like, I see. Very experimental, but if done right, you got yourself a deal. I can, well, use this to take away my cremation quirk and give myself the ice quirk. But what about a second run for the side in which would be used on my son? If I understand correctly, there would need to be a second use of that part of the device in order for that specific quirk, my current quirk, to be given to him after being taken from me. And Alpha-1 would just be like, oh yes, indeed, I could be so forgetful sometimes. And he would just hand him the last piece of the device, and he would be like, just that, like that, and it will indeed be connected. And, just, Touya will just be like, well, it's been nice doing business with you, Lord All-For-One, and I hope we never have to do this again. For, everyone's sake. That I actually care about, in case you forgot who you were talking to. Making the whole propositions and everything. And, he would just do the whole thing with the ice quirk, like taking the cremation quirk out and giving the ice quirk to him. He would just do that first, just to make sure, if things were stable or not, just so that he could make sure that this wouldn't backfire in his face. And that All-For-One was being true to his word. And he would do this, and while he wouldn't feel the effects of the quirk automatically, Touya would often, he would, eventually, be like, oh, yeah, that's actually usually how his whole quirk thing works. With other quirks, giving, taking, whoever ends up receiving the quirk from his giving part of the whole thing, it takes a while before it takes full effect on the body of the person receiving the quirk. I could see small little examples. Yes, feel a chill. Oh, all that uniqueness that my little Esdeath once had. Well, she won't be completely ununique. She'd still be the stronger ice user. As strong as this ice quirk seems to be resonating through me, and eventually whenever everything's finally, finalized and all that, shit, she would still have the more powerful ice ability. That demon's extract that she had told me about. Tegu, it can also be known as an Imperial Arm. In fact, she favored calling it an Imperial Arm instead of a Tegu. With her Imperial Arm, the demon's extract, even my eventual ice manipulating capabilities will still, pale in comparison to what she's able to do with her power. And she still probably wouldn't even be trying. That's just how powerful she is, my lady love, my beautiful Esdeath. If you can't tell, Touya has basically become a hopeless romantic for Esdeath ever since they first started, getting into each other in more ways than one. Brunching. You know, ever since that started happening, he's just become a hopeless romantic for the woman. And, after everything to deal with Tatsumi, you know, Esdeath would probably be thinking, this is a nice change of pace after being shunned by Tatsumi. And she didn't even have to claim this one. She didn't even have to claim Touya in order for him to be all hopeless romantic. Like, ever since, Touya started just, finally opening his eyes and realizing that even his cremation quirk, as powerful as it is, her ice, an entire freaking continent. And he's actually, Touya has no problem in believing that she was actually able to do that. Especially with how she, presented herself, how she, held her posture whenever she was stating about how she was able to freeze that continent. And so, Touya would just be like, I had no other choice than to become a hopeless romantic over this woman, love of my life, Touya. Basically, Touya X Esdeath. General Esdeath. Touya's just hopeless romantic all over the damn place. And, Esdeath wouldn't rather have it any other way than for, Touya to just be not rejecting him like how Tatsumi was not rejecting her like how Tatsumi was rejecting her, but actually accepting her. And, just like with Tatsumi, she would want this person in her life. She would have found love that actually accepted her back. Love that actually, was reciprocated towards her. Actual reciprocated love. And, so no wonder why they make such a great power couple. And, as far as Talia is considered, decent parents. Because we really, Esdeath, just being Esdeath. Not really knowing about what, Toya's planning. But, he's planning this for a reason. Not just because of the fact that, Izuku, the fact that he's quirkless, basically making him cannon fodder for everybody else who has a quirk, basically making him a cannon fodder for the people that do have quirks, especially the people that have strong quirks. And in the case of the son of the number 2 hero, Endeavor, freaking 2 really strong quirks. Like, that's just unfair. Touya would just be like, Shoto Todoroki. 2 quirks? Really? That's just unfair. He'd be like, I mean, just damn, that is not cool. And then he'd be remembering, oh yeah, he's the one with the ice quirk now. Because he would be seeing little encapsulated quirk. Usually the actual essence of what a quirk isn't actually visible to the human eye. But, now that it's encapsulated in a little thing that, All For One made, or Lord All For One whenever you're, part of the League of Villains, Touya can actually see the quirk and what it looks like. The actual essence of the quirk. And, Touya would just be analyzing the entire look of this suspended animation quirk. This quirk, just put in suspended animation. And he would see the name. It would have been his old quirk that he used to have. And quirk cremation. And he would have no qualms with giving this to his son. Because he would know that Izuku needs this. He'd be like, Izuku needs this if he's going to survive. Like, especially, my freaking younger brother, Shoto Todoroki, and, even if he's not going to use, Dad's freaking power, even if he's not going to use the fire, he is still going to need this if he's going to deal with people like that. My younger brother, Shoto. And people like Explosion Boy. People like that. If he's going to deal with people like that, in order to become a freaking hero, and, actually be able to live, he's going to need a powerful quirk. And, a quirk that is literally called cremation. Not much more obvious than that, like an OP quirk, whenever it is literally called cremation. Yeah, so not much more you can do to stick out. And, that would have been Touya's whole entire plan. And, but actually, Esdeath would have indeed walked in on him while he was making a sandwich. He would have actually laid the little device containing the cremation quirk and suspended animation on the table. The kitchen table. He would have laid it there while he was preparing himself a sandwich. A sandwich. And, Esdeath would just be like, Touya Todoroki, what the is this? Like, what the is this? Touya Todoroki, you better explain, or else you're not going to get you-know-what tonight. You're not going to get any of it tonight unless you start explaining, like, right now. Like, count of 3, young man. Esdeath being a general, she would have that authority just that she would carry with her. She would just be like 3, 2, and all of a sudden, just be like, Touya would just be like, my boss and me had a talk. And it was about helping Izuku not, die. His whole thing with pursuing, like, a career as a hero. I thought, finding some way to actually give him a quirk would, and considering I know that my boss can do this, can actually do that, give people quirks. That's kind of his whole quirk. His own quirk's whole thing is about giving and taking quirks. It's called All for One for a reason. And, Esdeath would just be like, oh, don't you be getting a snippy, snappy attitude with me, mister. And, Touya would just be like, yes, ma'am. He'd just be like, yes, ma'am. And I'd just say Esdeath would be like freaking livid pissed. Until she finally realized what was actually labeled on the little like thing containing the quirk, you know, and would eventually realize from all of the stuff coming off of, her own freaking boyfriend slash husband's body that, considering how cold she is, she would have actually failed to realize what was like coming off of his body as, the ice quirk actually started to develop more and more inside of Touya, Esdeath would finally be realizing it and be like, you accepted an ice quirk in place of your cremation quirk so that you could give it over to Izuku? A cremation quirk? And Esdeath would just be like, she would just be like, just dying of laughter. But it would be the insane kind, because, Esdeath is indeed insane. And, Touya is just like, oh shit, she's getting like that. She is getting like that again. Well, looks like it's duck and cover time. But wait, no, she has the thing that contains the quirk. And then, finally, Esdeath would be able to compose herself again and just be like, well, I was thinking about something myself, actually. Considering, everything, Izuku didn't just graduate, he graduated with past the whole last test thing with flying colors. And, all of his drive, his resolve to become a hero, all that power. My father had always said, the strong live, the weak die. And with how strong Izuku is on the inside, if he was that strong on the outside, and I think you know what I mean whenever I say that, Touya. And Touya would be like, wait, no, you're not actually going to insist that. And, Esdeath would just be like, well, it wouldn't technically be all Kool-Aid, so at least we wouldn't be looked at as terrible parents. Besides, we would be helping our child, not hurting him. Well, at least not for long. It would hurt, but it would also help. Esdeath would mainly be talking about what she would, be doing. What her plan was. And, Touya, it's finally now like 2 plus 2 equals 4. He's finally starting to get it. What she was planning to do in order to help Izuku with his problems. Seeing as, Setsuna has her own quirk, she can defend herself, with her quirk. But Izuku doesn't have a quirk, so he's just getting tossed. Like the salad. Like tossed like a salad in a lemon party. Like tossed like a salad at the lemon parties. And if you know what I'm referencing, good on you. Good on you guys if you know what I'm referencing. And, it would just come to like a kind of standstill. And that's whenever Setsuna would walk in and just basically break the silence whenever you're like, me and Izuku have been here for a while. Like, what are you guys talking about? Like, Mom, Dad, you're scaring us. And, Touya would just be like, oh, yeah, that's the thing. Myself and your mother, seeing as you already have a quirk, Setsuna, but Izuku doesn't, we have decided to come up with our own ways of fixing his problems. And, Izuku would just be like, really? I'm going to get a quirk? And, Esdeath would just be like, no, actually, you'll be getting something better. And then, Izuku would just be like, he would have studied on some of the stuff to deal with, like, previous, like, things, and Izuku would just be like, what, like, something about an Imperial what's-gonna-call-it? And Esdeath would just be like, Imperial arms, sweetie. An Imperial arm. That's what they're called. And no, not that either. However, that doesn't exactly mean like you won't be getting them. It just means you won't be getting them. And you could be like, wait, I won't be getting them, but I will be getting them? Like, what does that even mean? Like, and me get both? A quirk and an Imperial arm? Uh, like, both things? And Touya would be like, Setsuna, we trust that you can do what needs to be done. And Setsuna would just be like, well, at least now I can actually do what I've been wanting to be doing without actually having the threat of being punished dangling in my freaking face all the time, Izuku Midoriya. And Izuku would just be like, well, what's going on? And Setsuna would just be like, don't you get it? Well, that's right. You're still quirkless. So, you don't get it. And besides, being a member of a family of quirked and Imperial arms, you especially don't get it. I see. They are deciding to give you the Shoto Todoroki treatment. Even though Dad says that he hates that part of the family, something in him must have clicked to, for this to be allowed. And Esdeath would be like, oh yes, that's right, we never even thought of that. Then again, I don't think of much about your family anyways, except for how much of an asshole your father is, and how sorry I feel for your mother. To have to deal with someone like him for so long, and then after that, being sent to a mental hospital. How disgraceful. Well, anyways, not much time left for that. Now, Setsuna, please, will you get on with it? And Setsuna would be like, yes, mother. And so he'd be like, and don't forget. And, Setsuna would be just like, and yes, too, daddy. And, Setsuna would be like, I have no qualms with doing this because of how much I hate you. Just letting you know that, Izuku. I have no qualms with doing this. Just because of how much I hate you. And Izuku would be like, doing what? And she would just be like, batter up. And she would have grabbed a bat. There would be a box of, like, stuff lying around. not really, like, it would have just been like a box from either, like, moving something that needed to be moved, or, like, maybe just someone needed to find, a a drill or a wrench, and there would just be this box, and Izuku would have remembered there was a bat in that, there was a baseball bat in that box, and the baseball bat wouldn't have been there anymore, and then he would just hear, "Batter up! Bam!" And Izuku would go nighty-night, with less than he would be seeing, with a bat in her hands, his sister, Setsuna, being the guilty as you could ever be, for doing that to her brother. Like, he has to be unconscious for this, is basically what both Esdeath and Touya believe, is that he would have to be unconscious for this. I mean, they don't want to seem like really bad parents. They want to seem like they have some care for their child. Because really, they do indeed care for their kids. It's just, the extreme methods they'll go to in order to ensure that they have better lives. At least the ones that need the help, to get a better life. And, both Esdeath and Touya would be thinking, Izuku's the one that needs the help. Like, freaking Setsuna, Setsuna already has a quirk, so she doesn't really need any help. But Izuku doesn't have a quirk, he does need help. And in fact, we could have our own Shoto Todoroki, just to rub it in Endeavor's face just how inferior he is. Like, our Shoto Todoroki is better than your Shoto Todoroki. Our masterpiece is better than your masterpiece. Like, Touya would have said the thing about our Shoto Todoroki is better than your Shoto Todoroki. And then Esdeath would back it all up with, no, it would be, our masterpiece is better than your masterpiece. And, Setsuna, after hearing that, would just be like, wait, masterpiece? Then does that just make me chop liver? And they would just, like, Touya and freaking Esdeath would just basically be like, this isn't about you. You already have a quirk. You already have a means of defending yourself from other quirked individuals. So, yeah, it isn't about you. It's about Izuku because he does need help. It's not all about you, Setsuna. And Setsuna would just be like, hit with the big ol' reality check of, it isn't all about her. She's just being such a whole total piece of shit towards Izuku for, ever since, you know, watch part 1 for more details on that. Just like the biggest piece of shit to her own brother. And, all because of that, So, Setsuna would just, like, just go to her own room and just, like, be there and just on her bed, and she would be contemplating and just keep on contemplating and contemplating and contemplating. She wouldn't stop thinking. It would just be like an endless cycle of thinking and thinking and thinking. And, well, overall, she just wouldn't find it cool anymore to, do all that mean stuff to Izuku. But, maybe, slowly but surely, she could get Bakugo on that track of train of thought too. If not her, then Izuku, now that he's gonna have all of this power, two sides. One side a quirk, the other side an Imperial arm. And if she wasn't able to change his mind, then he would just have to face the wrath of her brother. So yeah, she would make attempts, like occasional attempts to get Bakugo's head out of his ass. And she would just be like, well, if I can't do it, then I'll just have Izuku, just sit back and watch the show, watch Izuku kick Bakugo's ass with his newfound powers. And whenever Izuku was eventually, woke up, his, everything that he would be feeling, Touya would be like real happy that, Izuku wasn't dead, that he was able to survive the whole, experiments they were doing on him in order to, give him what they say he's going to need if he's going to survive in a world where there's so many quirkless individuals, and then there's just him. And, if he wanted to be a hero, he was going to need a quirk. He was going to need a quirk, and so, well, Izuku would be like, well, what kind of quirk did I get then? And then Esdeath would just come in with we actually, thinking about it, my power, it isn't a quirk. You know what it is, Izuku. An Imperial arm. And, what I was thinking about giving you, to make your life easier, it turns out your father wasn't the only one. I was thinking about it too. Thinking about giving you something that they would have no idea how to combat, even if they had a fire quirk or an explosion quirk. Like that half and half kid on the other side of our family, and Explosion Boy, who keeps on hurting you so. And Izuku would be like, so wait, you said that you were thinking about, just thinking about half and half kid, Shoto Todoroki. Half and half as in his ice side, his fire side. And Touya would just be like all chillax, and he would be like, and you got something even better than that. You got a cremation side, and you got a demon's extract side. Yes, I legit just said that. Not just any Tengu, or Tegu, whatever. Not just any one of those. Not just any Imperial arm, but his mother's, his adoptive mother's Imperial arm. Because of the blood sample that, she basically just decided to use, just give him mine, part of mine, my shit, if he has the power from the most powerful, ice wielder on the planet, and you, with your whole thing of changing to an ice quirk now, he would be the one in our family with the fire quirk and an ice quirk. Only it wouldn't be a quirk. It would be Tegu, or Imperial Arm. Demon extract. So, realistically, son, what me and your father are trying to tell you is that you have two sides. Your quirk side and your Imperial Arm side. Your quirk side gives you a power called cremation, and your Imperial Arm side, also known as your Tegu side, if you want to call it that, if you feel like it, you know. If you feel like it. Well, just saying, your Imperial Arm side, giving you, well, you've heard the whole story about me and the continent. You heard about Mahoptima and the meteors and the cavalry and all of everything about me being a general for the Imperial Armory, the Imperial Armory, and the Jaegers. And technically being the last of my kind until now. My new family. A family that's actually strong instead of being weak. That will live instead of die. And Touya would just be like, yeah, she may be crazy right now, but she has a point. You have two sides. Your quirk side and your Imperial Arm side. Instead of Shoto having his fire side and his ice side, which really he's more or less handicapped himself, because I definitely know that, after that ugly mug job that Endeavor did to him, you don't think that babies are just born looking like that. And, Izuku would just see, like, some sort of, like, picture of, Todoroki after the whole thing with the scalding water. And he'd just be like, oh. And, Toya would just be like, so, yeah. There's a whole nother side to him beyond his ice side, that being his fire side, that because of the fact that he says his fire side is just his daddy's quirk, technically his daddy is the same as my daddy, basically your grandpa, as much of an asshole as he is, still willing to admit, Shoto, I guess you could call him your cousin, Shoto? I guess you could call him your cousin. Basically, your cousin has handicapped himself to only one side of such a spectacular ability to control both the power of flame and both the power of flame and frost. Such potential, and he has merely just allowed himself to only tap so deep into it. A pond instead of a river. However, I hope there's no resentment that would cause you to restrict yourself. Pick one side over the other. And Izuku would be like, no, I love both you guys. You're great parents. Both you and Mom, Dad. You guys are the greatest. You gave me this gift. I mean, I really hurt everywhere. Like, everywhere in my body, I feel excruciating pain, but It's just more or less like with what little ability to think I have, I really just, believe it might be maybe a side effect of first experiencing, this mix of quirk and imperial arm. And, Esdeath would be like, well, that is indeed true. Quirks and imperial arms are indeed different. And, more different than what one might think. Considering the power that they can give a person. And other things. We've already seen quirked ice versus imperial armed ice. And seeing as the ice you got was from the imperial arm demon's extract, the same imperial arm that I got my ice powers from. Yes, you'll do very well, son. And Touya would just be like, and that cremation power? Don't knock it till you try it, son. Definitely don't knock it till you try it. Hell, you may even become the next big thing. The true #1 hero. And, Izuku's just like, well, I guess the next obstacle in my way to becoming, my path to become a hero like all of the pro heroes of today is merely just the entrance exam to get into UA. That's where I want to go. That's where both me and Setsuna want to go. And, our friends too, and, well, also Bakugo wants to go there. And, Esdeath would already know about classes 1A and 1B, and would just be like, if that heathen, that barbarian child, Katsuki Bakugo, ever dare be allowed to be in the same class as my darling Izuku, so help me God, they will answer for every little bit of a scratch I find on you as soon as you return from the first day of school. Esdeath will just be scaring everyone. Like, that was actually there. Setsuna's, brooding. Just off brooding in a room. So technically she can't really, even if she was scared, she wouldn't know why she would be scared. Unless it was just, oh, it's just mom letting off more bloodlust and, killer intent again. That's just something she does from time to time. And also something that Dad's known for doing too. So it could be either one of them. Well, this would have just been like bloodlust and killer intent all over, like none other. Like no other. And so, basically, it would just be the entire like entrance exam, the written portion. Izuku, with this newfound confidence, he wouldn't have actually talked to Bakugo. He wouldn't even bother like actually looking in his direction. So, a lot of the things that actually got Ida all up in Izuku's grill, he wouldn't really be into talking with anyone. So, Ida, that really wouldn't happen. And, the whole thing about tripping, whenever one of your parents is one of the League of Villains, and your other parent is general of the freaking Imperial freaking army, you know, and they both gave you, like, their power things, like, half cremation, half freaking demon's extract. So, yeah. Like, Izuku really wouldn't feel like he had anything to worry about. You know? He would just be alright, like, doing his thing. And so, yeah. Things would just be going on the way, you know. He would have passed the written portion, going on to the practical portion, and, you know, Izuku would just be like, I hope you guys don't mind taking separate tests along, like, away from me, because I think I might just be ready for a one-hit kill. Or two-hit kill. I guess you could consider this a two-hit kill. And, you know, everybody would just be like, what the hell do you mean? And President Mike would just be like, there's no, you know, time thing in a freaking hero battle, so go, go, go! And then Izuku would be like, okay, I guess that would make 3 hits. Maybe 4 just for that guy's mouth. They don't call him President Mike for nothing, I guess. And, you know, he would just be like, hey, President Mike, say and President Mike would just be like, wait, what? And then, like, just point with, like, his, like, finger and just be like, shoo! And, like, President Mike would be like, he just have a giant freaking block of ice in his mouth, and he'd be, like, choking out on it. And then, you know, just all of a sudden, Izuku would have just disappeared from, like, freaking existence itself, and then just reappear in, like, the exact middle of the entire model city. And, you know, everybody would just be like, okay, that happened. And, you know, some people would actually come up into the observing room, like the observatory room, and be like, this happened to President Mike because of that kid in the middle there. Whatever quirk he has, it has to do with ice. And, you know, Principal Nesu would actually be observing the ice, and he'd be like, that's not a quirk. It's ice. And he found a way to use it. Yes, indeed he did. But that is not a quirk. I can tell. It can't be a quirk. And they'd just be like, well, he is indeed the smartest freaking being on the planet, so yeah, I'm not gonna question his logic. Nesu is supposed to be the smartest, you know, actual being in the My Hero universe. So yeah, they're not gonna question his logic. If he says that it's not possible that, you know, that ice could be a quirk, then it must be something like. But they could swear, like, President Mike could swear that it came from his fingertips, so, like, where would he have hid some sort of support item? And, like, the size of the block, he would need to have a pretty good big-sized barrel, and he didn't see anything. Like, any supportive, like any sort of gear, and President Mike would just be like, and it went by so fast. And so just like, and then he just disappears and then reappears and, like, straight in the middle of the Model City. What is this kid's deal? You know, basically, Touya and Esdeath fused together would be the amount of speed that Izuku would be showing off, plus his own speed. You know, so, like, if Esdeath has, like, enough of herself in there to freeze over a freaking continent, like, completely, like, yeah. it's really not all that, far-fetched to say that he'd be able to do that. Like, just get straight in the middle, like, automatically, like, point A, point B, and point B being, like, straight in the middle of the entire thing. And, some of the people in the observing room the observatory would just be, they'd be, like, baffled by, like, what they would just be like, then what is this power then? This ice that he shot out? If it can't be quark ice, then, and he doesn't have anything to actually shoot out ice from, and there's no ice around it, like, then what kind of anything is he? Like, are you sure about this, Netsu? And Netsu will just give President Mike a look, and President Mike would be like, okay, he definitely is sure. He doesn't give people that look unless, he's definitely sure. And, it would have just been like, Izuku would just be like Sonic the Hedgehog tapping his feet and be like, wonder whenever the actual serious business stuff is going to start happening. All I see are a bunch of hapless idiots fighting a bunch of weaklings. And then, some of the people taking the test would actually be pretty offended by that. And, they're like risking their lives out here fighting the robots. The 1-pointers, 2-pointers, and 3-pointers. And, he's insulting them while they're doing that. That's just mean. Like, he's pulling a Stone Cold Steve Austin. And just they're breaking their morale. Entirely. And, Izuku would just be like, okay, I've had enough of this bullshit. I've seen enough of this. You guys, all you quirked people, you act like you're so damn special. Well, time to show you who the real, OG, best ever is. Time to show you who the real big deal is. Time to show everyone who the real big deal is. And that'd be me. And, Bakugo would have been amongst the people that would have heard everything that Izuku said, and he would just be like, Deku, you are an idiot. And, he would just want to smack one of the 1-pointers away after he said that. And Izuku would just be like, you're so just boring. Why don't you ever have fun whenever you actually fight? I mean, I must, even if the oil inside of them is just like a substitution for blood, it's still a type of substitution for blood. Blood like the bloodlust of the battle. I can feel it coursing through me. And I haven't even activated the Imperial Arm. All this was just me using my quirk, the mere unlocking of it, to push me forward enough to where I would be in the middle of the arena. This coliseum of noobs. Absolute trash. Fodder who won't ever be able to do anything with their stupid, ridiculous. You honestly think that any of you could do anything if this was actually a real battle? You're all disgraces! How dare you call yourselves even heroes in training, heroes of the past, weep at your insolence. Now let me show you how a real hero does it. Mahatma. And it was shing, just freeze time. And the only thing besides Izuku not frozen would be, the observatory area and the people inside the observatory area. Because Izuku would know that that would have gotten to them, like everything that he just said. And he'd just be like, yeah, I dare you to not like me because of what I just said. I dare you to not like me. Like, the look that he's giving the people in the observatory before he actually goes to do anything, he's looking at them first. He's actually looking at them first before he does anything. Before he does anything else. He's just looking at them straight in the eyes. All the way from, like, across over there. Just be, like, daring them to, like, think negatively about him for saying what he said. Even though, to Izuku, it's just the hard facts that they have to face. In all actuality, Gachan's saying that he's the best and that everybody else would be lucky to be a sidekick to a D-lister hero. In all actuality, considering what, this Izuku actually thinks about everyone taking part of the test, he could have said much worse. And, to the point to where it would seem like that what Bakugo would have been saying to all those people back whenever he was in middle school would have been considered a compliment compared to what Izuku would actually be thinking about these people taking this test. And, while time was still frozen, he would eventually look away and, just be like, nah. Right before he looks away, he would just be like, nah. Just to purposely piss people off. Just to purposely get people's blood boiling. And, that's actually kind of bad for Vlad over here. Vlad, because his quirk revolves around blood. And so, at the point in which, he's like, nah, like right in front of their faces, Vlad just ends up, he actually has to be escorted, out on a stretcher, on a freaking gurney, because of what ended up happening to him, because of what his quirk is basically. And Izuku, keeps hero journals and villain journals too. So yeah, he just he would have been very aware about Vlad's whole thing. And so he would have kind of done that on purpose, pretty much done that on purpose. Just to get people's blood boiling, even though, Vlad was one of those people, and, he knows about Vlad's whole thing with his quirk being based around blood. And so getting that blood to boil, yeah, he would have just basically been there and be like, I am going to make this happen to you on purpose. Do this to you on purpose. You can't fault him for being honest. Just with his expression alone, whenever he was looking at them, they could all tell, even the less smart individuals in the room, even they could tell what Izuku's actual intentions were whenever he was looking at them. Yeah. He doesn't care what they think. Legit. He doesn't care. All he wants to do is be brutally honest, like, about this. Just let them know how minuscule they are. Like, all these students thinking that they're big shit because they have flashy quirks. Well, guess what? I have a half and half thing. But my half and half, I actually use to its, good extent. And don't, like, half-ass my half and half. And guess what also? My half and half isn't just quirk-based. It's quirk and, you know, like all of this adrenaline would just be building up inside of Izuku as he would be talking about this. He would just be like, my half and half isn't just revolved around quirks. It's also revolved around Imperial arms. Specifically, the quirk cremation and the Imperial arm demon's extract. That's all the ice. And Mahatma itself. The reason why everything is frozen in place, like time stood still, because it is. Every area where my ice touches, I can use Mahatma. And to an extent, I can freeze time in that area. And no one can stop me. Seeing as Devil's Extract is not a quirk, it's an Imperial arm. And like, legit, people in the observatory room thing would just be like, oh crap, you just mentioned something about an Imperial arm, like, and the name of the Imperial arm is freaking Demon's Extract? Like, what the hell? Demon? Like, holy shit. And his quirk is cremation. Oh my god. That is horrifying. Just like thinking of what he could do with something named cremation. But Aizawa is the first person to bring up Aizawa, and actually, All Might too, to some extent, are like the first people to bring up what Netsu already kind of got the picture, because he's smartest little hamster person in all of the MHA universe. Netsu would have already kind of gotten the picture. But Aizawa and All Might to some extent would just bring up like cremation and this devil's extract, seeing as the only real effects it seems to have actually had are ice-based, plus the whole actual being able to not just freeze time, but freeze time. Yeah, cremation, and then there's something that has ice. Yeah, he's a half and half. There's not just one half and half person trying to be a hero here. This guy, the one freaking Austin 316 just whooped your ass. Yeah, trash talking people, trash talking everybody. Like D-Generation X, freaking trash talking everybody. Biker Taker, trash talking everybody. The Rock, trash talking everybody. All the good trash talkers. You're just being a savage. And Todoroki, the other half and half person, is taking, the whole test, like recommendation style. It would have just been like, okay, that was a thing. And eventually, after the entirety of the whole thing, like, there would be the 0 pointer, and, Izuku's entire thing would be like, oh, look, there's someone under rubble, they're trapped, oh, what am I to do? Then just, well, this. And all of a sudden, just, there would, like, legit, like, whenever they say cremation, they mean cremation. Like, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, spontaneously appearing out of nowhere, the rubble, like, that Ochako's trapped under, would just, in the place of the rubble, blue flames of cremation. And then the blue flames of cremation would just disappear as soon as all of the rubble was just freaking gone and done for. And then the person that she would realize, like, he would have his hand out like, you're welcome. He would have just basically just Speedy Gonzalez his ass over there and been like, you're welcome. Because he would have just sprayed it on that freaking rubble, sprayed the cremation quirk. And, Nesu would have gotten a look at the creation quirk, gotten a little bit of a look at that. Everybody would have been able to have a little bit of a look at, the cremation quirk. Even Endeavor, which cremation, that's something. Indeed, that is indeed something. And this Imperial Arm thing, apparently it allows him to access ice powers. And with the way he was trash-talking everyone, something tells me All Might didn't put him up to this, with the way he was trash-talking everyone and all. So, who's responsible for this? All Might. If you're not responsible for this, then who is? Like, Endeavor wants answers, and he wants them now. Like, who's responsible for this person just being here and doing that? Like, literally, what the hell? And, what would have just happened? Like, they would just see on the ceiling, they would see Izuku, but he'd be standing on the ceiling, upside down. And he'd just be like, yo, what's up? Like, what's up, my homies? Like, he would legit say that, like, what's up, my homies? And, Aizawa and everybody else, like, Endeavor, everybody would just be like, the hell? Like, this is some exorcist shit. Like, I was not prepared for, like, some exorcisms to be done. Like, where's the holy water? Where's the freaking cross? Like, where's the freaking Holy Bible or Buddha statue or whatever we worship? Like, the power of whatever we worship compels you. And, it wouldn't help the fact that the next thing Izuku would do is roll his eyes back in his head, freaking Undertaker style, and then roll them back normally. And, he would just be like, nah, later, losers. And, he would just disappear. Yeah. Aizawa would just be like, As much as that kid creeps me the beep out, as much as he does, gotta admit, whenever I see skill, I gotta admit, seeing skill whenever I see skill. And that kid, whatever kind of, whatever an Imperial Arm is, it must be like some sort of quirk steroids. The kind of skill that kid has. Ugh. Anyways, like I just now stated, if anybody's to have him in a class, I want it to be me. I actually think I might be the only one who'd be able to handle him, actually. You know, I may be the only one besides All Might who'd be able to take, what he would be coming to pack. That is, unless you would want to get yourself involved in Endeavor. And Endeavor would just be like, hell no. Like, you just saw the kid pull some exorcist shit. Like, just, like, then return to normal and, Audi 5,500, whatever, like it was nothing to him. And, all the trash talking and just being an overall asshole because he could be, and so he was. He came, he saw, he kicked everyone's ass. And so, yeah, he would have gotten the top score as well. Because, he did indeed rescue Ochako. So, yeah. Basically, it would take, like, maybe a week or over half a week. Sometime around that, time frame for the actual letter to get there. But, basically, Setsuno would come barreling into his room. Izuku would be on his bed, and he'd just be like, wait, what the? And Setsuno would just be like, loser, your exception letter, UA. And, yeah, sorry, still getting used to not calling you a loser. And Izuku would be like, don't really know why you're not trying to call me a loser. I mean, you were perfectly fine with doing it before. And wait, where were you whenever we were doing the practical exam? I was only that brutal and, ruthless with my words because you and Pony and Reiko weren't there. If, I had been like that while they were there and you were there, first of all, I think you would have kicked my face in. Second of all, after that, Reiko would have probably murdered you in your sleep. And, Pony, just overall, hearing me say those things about those, really just, can you really consider them anything more than second-rate students? I mean, even if any of them did indeed get in, if you were actually there, you would have seen their quirks and how they use them. It's not just their quirks in general, it's how they use them. Ugh. It's just, I, and there's apparently someone else who's half and half. It really is true. The other side of our family has a half and half of their own, and apparently Gramps and Deborah are also known as what Dad likes to call him, Gramps Shithead. And actually, you actually called him that once too. But hey, you were actually accidentally drunk on the punch bowl. And that's whenever we figured out why you never drink the Kool-Aid. Or at least that type of Kool-Aid. You know, there's Kool-Aid that's Kool-Aid and Kool-Aid that's spiked, and then there's Kool-Aid that's poisoned. So yeah, we just thanking our lucky stars that we got Kool-Aid number 2 instead of Kool-Aid number 3. We would at least preferred, well, I know Mom would have preferred if it was Kool-Aid number 1. And Setsuna would be like, just like start sitting on Izuku's bed and would just be like, well, yeah, of course. Mom and Dad have voiced it before that they don't want harm to befall us. I mean, just because Mom acts crazy sometimes, you just seem to forget that Dad does too. It's just he doesn't make it as obvious. Is that why you don't ever point it out like you do whenever Mom is? And then Izuku would start to think, like, oh yeah, that's right. Maybe that is why I never pointed it out. Because, unlike Mom, he never makes it obvious. Like, that obvious that I'd actually be able to tell. And, well, he's kind of the sole reason why I'm still alive. I mean, I know that Mom came along for the ride with him. You know, they were already kind of a package deal, but, you know, she could have left him high and dry, left Dad high and dry, anytime she wanted to, considering that, you know, a kid entering their lives, but, you know, didn't. And so, really, I guess it's just that Dad's the reason, you know, that I'm still alive. And even though he isn't my blood dad, part of me doesn't really want to know about my blood dad. And, well, also, part of me actually feels the exact opposite way about my blood mom. Apparently, everything that, after a really passionate night of, you know, number 2, actual, just pure number 2 drinking, apparently, unlike the usual stereotypes, Dad's the lightweight and Mom is the non-lightweight whenever it comes to that. And, well, certain things were shared. Many certain things were shared. Talking about how sweet she was. And how much she hated herself for not even thinking and just taking me out there. You know, whenever me being just a baby, it could have been genuinely dangerous for me. Dad talking about how sweet she was whenever he met her, my blood mom. I want to meet my blood mom. I mean, I know something that was said. There was a deal made so that, you know, how everything's been the way it's been, you know, Mom and Dad protecting me and all. In order for that to happen, I could never see her. And that's why I'm sure you're surprised, but I'm not all that upset. And that's because all this time, ever since I first started figuring out about these secrets. Figuring out that because the way everything worked, the deal that was made, I would never be able to meet my blood mother. That's why I'm so calm, even though it's like a subject like my own blood mother. So that's your answer, Setsuna, for that. If you were wanting one. And so Setsuna would just be like, good God, how long have I been ignoring your pain and suffering? Just in order to pummel you more with Bakugo. And come to think of it, why did I ever even like Bakugo? Like, dude's a freaking, you know, psycho, but in all the wrong ways. Like, at least our parents are psychos in the right way, not the wrong way. But Bakugo, he couldn't be more of a psycho in the wrong way, if he tried. I can't believe I actually ever liked him and was so blind to all your suffering. And Izuku would just be like, it's fine. I'm fine. But hey, this whole letter. And they would just, put the whole disc thing in, and the hologram would be projected, and it would be a hologram of All Might, basically stating, at Izuku Midoriya, you and your sister, Setsuna, you know, uh, Setsuna is also accepted into My Hero Academia. Your Hero Academia, whatever. That's basically the gist of the message. And, actually, Izuku, working in his inner, bad side, decided to put his methodical thinking to work and actually kind of hack into the school systems to see who was going to be in which class, the who's who of the school before school even started. And, Setsuna would just be like, well, you don't actually have to, but if you actually do indeed feel like it. And Izuku would just be like, oh, do I ever? After today, I really needed something to help with my stress. And scrubbing the whole thing clean of any secrets might just do it for me. Especially if I'm actually able to look at their in-depth files with all the juicy meat and potatoes style information. The whole good shit about, what you actually would need to know if we were to ever be pit up against any of the other students. And, Setsuna would just be like, yeah, you're right. Oh, I won't be participating with you, but I guess I could look. And Izuku would be like, oh, don't feel bad about looking at the cheat sheet, sis. I mean, it's the most I could do for being as quiet as I've been. Free cheat sheet. And no one will ever even know. The way I've encrypted all this security, we would be the only ones that would know. And anyone else who we trusted, that is. And, Setsuna would just be like, well then, why don't we give it a try? And Izuku would just be like, well, it seems Class 1A's teacher is Shotai Aizawa, also known as the nighttime hero Eraserhead. And as for the cannon fodder of the bunch, and he would just giggle to himself as he says that. And he'd just be like, well, there's Explosion Boy. And oh, seems there's going to be two half and halves in Class 1A. And, this would actually be like, Setsuna would be like, wait, that Todoroki kid who was taking the recommendations test, he's gonna be in Class 1A too? I mean, surely, you got top of the board scores, so there would be no way you wouldn't be getting into 1A, right? And he's like, that's exactly what I said. There's apparently going to be two half and halves. Simple math, my, sister dearest. And, Setsuna would just be like, you don't have to be a jerk about it. And it would just be like, just because I was surprised doesn't mean you have to be a jerk about it. So that's Shoto Todoroki kid. The one who, even though he's another half and half, like you, he only uses one of his halves. And just completely abandons the other because he thinks of it as his father's power. And wait, isn't the other half and half Cousin Shoto? And, Izuku would be like, Cousin Shoto is going to be a part of Class 1A. Well, hot damn. Are we going to have some catching up to do, Cousin Shoto? And, it would just be like Explosion Boy, Cousin Shoto. They'd be like, oh, there's apparently this kid, Tokiyami, has this quirk called Dark Shadow. And, if it gets really dark, it's hard to control. It's very powerful. Like, the darker the area, the more powerful and uncontrollable Dark Shadow the quirk Dark Shadow is. Apparently. And, Setsuna would just be like, well, that is indeed interesting. And they'd just be skimming through students like not all of them would be as bottom of the barrel cannon fodder level students as Izuku would have initially thought, but that doesn't exactly mean like he likes every single last one of them. No, there still are plenty that he thinks are bottom of the barrel cannon fodder students. But then he actually gets to the bottom of the page to where the last few entries. And it would just be like, wait just one damn second here. And Setsuna would be like, what? What is it? Last three entries for students. Apparently they're all replacements for people that were going to get in, but after seeing the scores that these three apparently got, a last minute decision was made, and, the original picks were overruled and sent over to God knows where. Possibly Shiketsu. Never really cared much for Shiketsu. Huh. Seems that the original last three picks were going to be, some girl that has, her quirk is the ability to make herself invisible. In fact, she's pretty much always using that. She is basically an invisible girl. Ow, ow, my ear. So the first one was a girl who only thing was be that the fact that she was invisible. No surprise there that she'd be swapped out for someone probably definitely more talented. Next pick, some grape-haired pervert who apparently the grapes on his head are sticky, sticky but sticky but pop-offs, sticky but. Oh my god. And Izuku would have just had an aneurysm. And, you know, you know, Setsuno would be like, you did say it was three picks, so who was the third person who was going to be let in? And, he would have just said, ah, well, some weirdo with a tape quirk. I don't even want to bother saying their name. All you gotta know is that their quirk revolved around tape and nothing more to it. Oh, good freaking God. Hope there's no one else more useless than that they actually let get through into this most prestigious class of the most prestigious hero school. That they actually call it the hero course and the home room. And the switches, what they switched out for, oh my god. Sis, you won't even believe this, but what I am saying is straight facts. I clicked the switch page, and it showed the switches. Who was switched out for who. And apparently, you got a lot of luck over Tape Boy. And, Setsuno would just be like, so wait, I was dead last, and just got in because of a switch over some tape quirk kid? At least I got into UA at all. And actually into Class 1A at that. What about the others? You seem to be really surprised about every single pick. Every single switch they made. And he would he'd basically be like, well, who's the girl who always was kicking your ass whenever you were mean to me, alongside Bakugo? And who was the other girl who was really insisting that that girl didn't really have to be that way? And, Setsuna would basically be answering the question for herself. Oh my god. Pony and Reiko are in Class 1A with us? Oh my god. That is so cool. That is so freaking badass. Ah, ah. I've actually been taking steps to maybe possibly being able to be friends with Reiko in the future. As soon as I get out of my little rut with Bakugo. Dude is so freaking clingy. Doesn't he get it? We're no longer anything of a thing. I actually want to be as least, you know, mentioned around him as possible. Like the least to do with him as possible. Unless it's, helping you deal with him. And Izuku would just be like, well, huh, come to think about that. You, Pony, and Reiko, all in Class 1A with me. Wait till Pony and Reiko figure out about the fact that not only do I have a quirk, but I have an Imperial arm, or what's also known as a Tegu. But I agree with Mom. I like Imperial arm more. It sounds badass. Right, Setsuno? And Setsuno would be like, of course something that Mom thinks is badass would be badass. I mean, you do know Mom is badass, so anything that she thinks is badass is automatically going to be badass. And, Izuku would just be like, and it's the same thing with Dad, too. And Setsuna is like, of course it would be. I mean, our parents are awesome, so, why wouldn't stuff that they would like not be awesome? I mean, come on. Use your brain, Izuku. Or should I say, dumb Zuku? And Izuku would just be like, hey, you're going to be part of the freaking class that I'm going to be a part of, So we're going to have to work together sometimes. So, please stop the name calling. At least, if I ask you that, like, if I at least ask that of you, can you please stop? And, Setsuna would be like, geez, I didn't know you were so damn literal, Izuku. I think you would have at least known whenever I was messing with you. I'm nothing like that Bakugo kid. He keeps on trying to call you Deku. If he calls you Deku one more time, I swear, I'm gonna shove my freaking shoes up his throat. But, remember, I said my shoes, not yours. And Izuku's like, oh my god, the Jordans. And Setsuna would be like, oh no, what have I done? I reminded him about the Jordans that I messed up. His Jordans, especially ordered ones. Oh god, this is going to not ever end. Setsuna, what have you done? You've just now reminded him about the Jordans, and we just now got him to forget about the Jordans. And Izuku would just be like, they weren't any Jordans, they were Air Jordans. And, Setsuna would be like, I know, and I hate myself for it. And, Esdeath and Touya, they would just instantly walk in on, a familiar scene. Touya and Esdeath, they would just look at each other and then Esdeath would be like, should I tell Izuku? And Toya would be like, why do you think that I should tell him? Like, really? Like, why do you think I should? And Esdeath would be like, Izuku, I have something for you. Mommy has something for her little Izuku. And she would just shake a box. Like, there would be like a box and a bag. And she'd start shaking the bag. And there'd be like rustling sounds in the box. And Izuku would be like, but that sounds like specific rustling. Only rustling that can be made by, no. The originals cost like $1 bajillion. And you got replacements? You are so cool, Mom. You're the best. And Toya would be like, hey, I helped, like, make the price half with a coupon. And, Esdeath would be like, the reason why it was like that, the reason why I didn't mention that is to save you. And Toya would be like, what do you mean? And then he would remember, oh shit. And then, like, Izuku would just be like, you're both the best. And, like, squeeze. Like, super hug. And, freaking, like, Setsuna would just be like, well, at least he's happy. Now, hopefully, he'll be able to forgive me again. And then all of a sudden, you just see Izuku running, like, full speed into his room, like, closing the door behind him, and just, like, not long afterwards, he would come out wearing the Jordans, and he'd be like, guys, got the keys to the garage, going in the garage, and you just hear, guys with Jordans in the garage, and Toya would be like, oh shit, I still have that freaking hoop in the garage. And Esdeath would be like, I thought I told you to take that down 3 weeks ago, Toya Todoroki. And Toya would just be like, sorry, it was a really busy night, and I forgot, okay? I'm only human. Like, can I just not forget one thing? And Esdeath is just like, fine, but only because I love you, and you're my schnookums. And, Toya would be like, oh, you said the thing? And Esdeath would be like, oh, damn it, I said the thing. And Toya would be like, yeah, you said the thing, and you know what that means. And Esdeath was like, no, you know what this means. And would just be like, flip, like, just start to, like, twirl around, like, Toya into, like, some sort of submission hold, and then just, like, go for a running sprint, like, into their room, close the door behind them, and, Setsuna wouldn't really get all that much sleep because of what her parents would have been doing. And, even if she could somehow block what her parents were doing, even if she could somehow block that out, Izuku was bound to work his Jordans back into, his comfort zone, work his Air Jordans into his back. On the analysis because Dark Americans OUT out here. You boys, bye.